information that will help anyone trying to move things forward in the digital world of accounting. This week, we're talking about Sage. They've reported their either yearly or half yearly figures to March 2025. And I'm joined by the wonderful Phil Hobden and Helen Cockle, who will be helping us dive into those figures and what they mean for Sage and their customers. Firstly, Phil, you've only been here for 2 weeks now, mate. Like, how you find it? I assume I can just ask you all the questions, right?
That's it. Yeah, I have an encyclopedic knowledge of everything that you need to know. As long as that question is how are you? Outside of but no, it's great. Yeah, 2 weeks in, and as you'd imagine, joining a big organisation, there's lots to learn and lots of people to know. And every day I'm meeting a new, fascinating and amazing person, which is great for my kind of contact book and networking and everything else. But no, I've really enjoyed it. And yeah, 2 weeks in. So thank you for putting this on me. Hence why when you reached out to me, I was like, I might need some assistance on that one. And I of course, there was no one better to help me than Helen, who, for anyone that knows my history, knows that I started this journey in this industry at Futurely. So to now be working back with Helen at Sage is fantastic. And it obviously meant I didn't do too bad a job back at Futurely, which is amazing as well. So,
Phil?
8, 9, something like that. It was early days of Futurely, right? It was like back when we were staying in dodgy Airbnbs and, you know, and hustling for every deal. So it's amazing to kind of be back working with you. But you've got your own story, right?
Yeah, Helen. Yeah, and look, I've known Helen since even before it was called Futurely, back in the Crunchboard days. And you basically, in some way, because at Sage acquired Futurely, stayed at one business for endless years now. And how long have you been at Sage?
Well, if you include the right the way back to Crunchboards, it's now 11 years since we took Crunchboards out into the
hopefully you get something for that, right? Like a watch or at least a thank you card.
Or yeah. Focus, like one of those things that you ride on that you lean forward, probably. Oh, Phil's just over. We've just passed the 3-year point at Sage as well. So you know, it's been, you know, I just actually put a LinkedIn post out on this because, you know, it's 3 years post acquisition. And, you know, I obviously don't go into it. Anyone who did see my LinkedIn post, you know, I'm not going into any of the acquisition terms, but of course they retain acquisition people when they take over the company, because of course we're critical to embedding it into the Sage way of working, into their bigger, wider mission and making sure that the expertise come with them. But I've passed that point now. And it's this point that you often see the people who've been part of these startups and the takeovers leave. Well, I'm not going anywhere. And I think it's really testament to what I found when we come into Sage. You know, I put in the post, if you'd have said back to me 10 years ago that it would be Sage that we'd be part of, just wouldn't have thought that would be reality, because actually what we thought was Sage versus actually what Sage is, two completely different things. It has all the feels actually of Futurely in the days, you know, okay, the hustling and the kind of doing demos in loos and on stairwells when we didn't have an office and all those things we had to do. We don't have to do that at Sage, but actually it's got the fast pace, it's got the innovation, it's got people really thinking and trying to be creative and recognizing that there's a whole new era that we're just coming into. You know, the digitalization period, of course it's still going on, but that big stage of digitalization that we all talked about then when we were going, you know, don't worry about your server, it's okay, you can move away from a server. That phase is gone. And yes, we're still digitalizing, and of course MTD in these next waves is driving it to continue. But actually there's a whole new phase. You know, we're coming into this AI phase and this next era of accounting, and you know, it's new to everybody, it's new to tech companies, and we're out there trying to really sit at the bleeding edge of technology and deliver absolutely what our customers expect, but ensures that we maintain our foothold at the front. And so it's exciting, it's good to be part of it, and there's some bloody brilliant people in Sage. So yeah, that was a long way of saying
you're a big organizer.
and just to qualify, I can 100%, Helen was not exaggerating when she was talking about doing demos in loos and on stairwells at Futurely. Like that was an actual real thing. We had one place we could do a demo, And outside of that, it was wherever you could find space.
It really was. It was on a stairwell. People used to walk past you. You try and turn your camera.
I had to sign delivery notes. Someone literally in the middle of a demo to a top 100 firm came up to me and said, "Could you just sign this delivery note for me?" And I'm like, "Go away," whilst trying to demo.
But yeah, we don't.
And at least, look, I guess with Sage, you've got the financial backing, right? But I think everyone's aware of the pivot that Sage made from a traditional accounting house now to a modern dynamic one.
Yeah.
And I think the figures that we want to focus on today are probably helping back that up. So what we reported in the newsletter was basically an article that talked about the end of year financial reports for Sage. And the main thing that was taken from this is that your operating profit has jumped by 16%. But it'd be good to understand what some of the other figures that were, I guess, were key for the end of year financial reports. And Helen, is that something you've got and can expand on?
Yeah, it is. I mean, our operating profits are up, which is just testament to the efficiency that they're running in the business, actually, and really focusing on driving our business in the right direction, both operating profit wise, but also revenue wise. We've had this continuous shift into, to your point, towards the subscription based services. And it's working. It's a 9% revenue growth that we saw in this first half. And actually our annualized revenue climbed 11% to 2.45 billion. I mean, it's numbers that are just off the chart, but it absolutely reflects what we're up to and what we're doing. And actually, the big driver behind it is Copilot. Sage Copilot, the rollout that we're doing there, that is the absolute proof that our customers are seeing value. They're staying, they're sitting. We're actually seeing, 101% renewal rate by value sitting on Copilot. So, they're coming in, they're staying, and they're paying. And I think we were first out of the traps. I think it said tracks. It wouldn't be the right one. It's traps, isn't it? First out of the traps with, the AI solution. You were first out of beta. And we know where we're going with it. And actually, we're delivering it correctly. We're delivering it right. And people are staying and paying. So all of those elements of our cloud products, our suite, Sage for Accountants, and Sage Copilot are all underpinning those revenue results that you see.
But it also, what's also good on that is it's not just UK, right? We're seeing growth in US and Europe as well. So US is 11%, Europe's 8%. So like it just shows that that's not just a UK thing. That all the regions we're working in, we are seeing actual notable growth in all of those regions.
And in
market, I don't think we should, we shouldn't underestimate the economic market is hard. And so it's even more testament to those results of what we have landed on, and testament to the products that underpin it, because ultimately we need to produce good products. It doesn't matter whether you're Sage or not. You have to deliver products that enable customers to stay, and in tough climates to make that choice to stay, and they are. So we're doing really well.
Yeah, and going back to the Copilot side, according to that article, you've got about 40,000 customers in the UK using Copilot, which is a huge, a huge uptake. And I think that, and we've talked about it a lot on the podcast, out of the three of the four main products out there, like financial products, your Copilot has got the biggest traction. It's had the biggest positive impact, and I don't think there's any shying away from that. You've had, one, I guess, little scare with a bit of data sharing that shouldn't have occurred, but you've moved through that, and people still see the benefit and the power in the product to keep using it, as you said. So I think that is a big win for you. But I guess one of the biggest things that you've had to focus on over probably the last few years is, as you say, that transition of clients from desktop to cloud, keeping them, getting the pricing right to balance that, to draw them in. So not kind of doing it too low that you're hitting your profit, but obviously not doing it too high, it scares them away. And it feels like you're doing that really well. Because I assume you've got now the vast majority of, I guess, your early win clients onto the cloud. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, of course. So we're seeing, the growth of cloud continues to ramp up, and they, to the point on before, underpin those results. But I think I'm going to go back to Sage Copilot, because I actually think there's a really important point here on why, to your point, we've got these thousands of users sitting on it. We're seeing month-on-month growth. We're seeing them stay. And I think it's because we're actually looking at AI from a slightly different perspective. There's a degree of still trepidation when it comes to tech adoption, particularly in the AI space. And yet we've got small businesses where pressure is ramping. We've got accountants, particularly with all the MTD, where actually, they're overloaded, there's not time to do things. So there's a real want and need for something to automate and deliver. But actually, companies are holding back, and it's like, why? And I think understanding that is what's fed the power behind Copilot. And it's because there's a nervousness on the word artificial, if you like, makes people question, is it right? Is it accurate? What's coming in? So I think where we're really coming from is that our numbers are authentic. I think we've just come back from Sage Futures over in the US, where it was actually, it's not super fancy algorithms. Actually, you've got the ability to be able to dive in and look at where the calculations have come from. We're not hiding them behind all sorts of walls. You can see it. And it's authentic intelligence that's based on over 40 years of experience of sitting in the UK market, working with small businesses, working with accountants who work with small businesses, understanding their accounts, understanding their ways of working. And that legacy is what has fed the information and the intelligence of Copilot. And so it becomes a really trusted tool in a new landscape, a new era where there's a real trepidation on that word artificial. We all know, if you go into Chat GPT, it says, do not trust these results. And so we're told all the time not to trust results from AI. And that, particularly if you're talking from a accounting perspective, can be really challenging and really restricted to that adoption. So I think we're leaning into that legacy. We're leaning into our experience. We're leaning into the fact that 40 plus years underpins all of what we surface, and it's authentic, it is intelligent, but it's actually also real and trustworthy. Just like Sage, to be honest, it's a really trustworthy brand, and that's running through into our AI solution.
And something I want to go back to, Helen, it's a really good point that you make on that, is that underpinning what those where those numbers come from. If you remember right back to the early days of Futurely, right, one of the first challenges that I ever had was when I was showing someone a demo and they were like, well, show me how you got to that number. Show me how that automation worked. And it was a real learning lesson for me, because it was like, okay, I can't just show what the number is. I have to show how the software's found that number. So that went right the way back to when we were at Futurely, when we were talking about this and showing people how we, showing where the working was, what the technology was, how it all works. So those numbers that they were seeing and talking to their customer about was authentic.
Ultimately, accountants, their business is based on them being reliable and trustworthy and delivering accurate numbers to the small businesses. That's their role with those small business customers. And so they need to have software that really delivers that level of authenticity, accuracy, and actual proper intelligence. And I'm just going to hark back again. I'm going to talk to Futurely for a second, because when we did the latest product, which we call Predict, and is now Futurely, but it's got that automation where you can come in, you can immediately create a forecast for the business. We chose at that point not to use AI because, of course, we created it, started building it 4 or 5 years ago. AI was still very new at that point, very much in nappies. And it just wasn't intelligent enough to deliver accuracy because it didn't understand the way that accounting data works. So we created our own accounting-based algorithms. And that's the point. That intelligence we put into Futurely, so it understood journals, it understood cash movements, it understood that it's, when is it going to hit payment terms, all of that. That wasn't in early AI. And I think that importance of delivering an accuracy of information and an intelligent, authentic information service was there in Futurely at the time, and we took the decision not to use AI. And what Sage are doing is recognizing that and using their experience to make sure that what we serve up is transparent, trustworthy, and is as authentic as we can make it.
And just one last point on this, and I think it's one of the really interesting things that blew my mind when I started, because obviously the first 2 weeks at any business, you start to kind of pull on threads, right? Like you get a little thread over here and you pull on it and you go, oh, I want to find out a little bit more about that. One of the things that blew my mind was how Copilot, our AI at Sage, is being developed in the UK by a team in Newcastle, right? 400 people in Newcastle developing our AI product. So it's not only is it our product, but it's also something that's being done in the UK with a UK team. And I think that is...
It's not them pumping it out.
But that's cool, right? Like, and again, I think that goes back to that authenticity of the brand and Sage. And like, it's being developed in Newcastle by 400. I mean, I just want to imagine 400 Geordies in Newcastle building an AI product. That's my vision.
The office at Sage in Newcastle is incredible. Ryan, we should get you up there. I couldn't believe it when I went. I mean, obviously we've got the Shard is our London office, which is lovely and got.
It's nice.
I mean, you've got the most beautiful views over London. You have to sit in offices that are kind of shaped like a pyramid, but apart from that, but it's the most beautiful office. And you kind of walk past all the tourists, and you're like, yeah, this is my place of work. Anyway, Newcastle office, it's like a business park. It is huge, and it's so high tech inside it. So in the centre of it, it's got these big. This is where I'm not really tech. I want to say LED screens, but I'm pretty sure that's not what they are. But it's like Piccadilly.
They could be. It could be that.
Piccadilly Circus with lifts, like glass lifts going up and down. It's like Willy Wonka does tech. It is fabulous. And when you go up there, you suddenly see, one, the sheer size of this UK business. And people forget. So many people think we're a US-based business. We're not. We're a UK business. Employing, we're one of the biggest employers up in the Northeast. And actually, you get the real sense of it when you go up to that office. And it's quite incredible. I couldn't believe I took photos like a little sado when I went up there when we first joined Sage and sent them back. Because, of course, back to where we started doing demos on the stairs, I couldn't believe that this was then our head office. It's a really impressive business. Anyway, we've digressed.
No. We've completely digressed. We're waxing lyrical about buildings and LED screens now.
I shouldn't be surprised if I invite Helen and Phil on. They're going to talk about Futurely, and they're going to keep talking. That's the two things I needed to be aware of.
But look, it's expanding.
Yeah, it's expanding.
Yes. In this love.
And by the way, this is the reason why I came to Sage, right? Like, obviously, great products and everything else, but to be able to team back up with Helen and the thing I noticed, right, like, and you've known Helen for ages, right? And if you want to talk about authenticity. I walked in day one and I was like, it literally was like the last 6 odd years of my life hasn't happened. It was exactly the same conversations, exactly the same Helen doing exactly the same stuff. And I was like, it just feels like 6. Yeah, no, it was literally that. I've never felt day one in a business like for all the craziness and the Shard.
And authenticity, Phil, is a key thing because actually the reason we did so well with Futurely is because I bloody believed in it. We did. We absolutely believed in what we were like.
We're still going on with that, so I'm going to rein us back in a bit and pull us back down. One last thing I'll say is I am slightly disappointed that I'm the one wearing green in this. I don't know how that's happening now, but
true story. I haven't got a t-shirt yet. It's on its way.
Oh, okay. It's in the post. So the going back to the AI bit, yes, I think something that's critical for accountant is we are trained to be skeptical, and so we're trained to not trust things. So that proof, the backing behind it is critical for us. Otherwise, we're just not going to trust it. We're not going to follow it. But I think the other thing, the other key thing at the moment with AI is that there's too much noise out there that we don't know what to do or where to do it. So if you can build it subtly in, so it feels that you're just interacting with a tool in a normal way, but AI is powering that, which I feel is how Sage Copilot has kind of really pinned itself, is that you just naturally start feeding into it, naturally start using it and adopting it. And I think that's where some of the others maybe have struggled a bit. They're trying to force it a little bit. Or, as you said, the fact you're UK focused, it's all been US based and it hasn't really come over to the UK yet. So yeah, you're prime position from an AI perspective.
Well, I think the they did was smart. Everyone was a bit like, why GoPro, why auto entry, why Futurely, etc. But actually, now that you understand it with Copilot wrapper,
it's all building in.
End to end, it's in the workflow. It enables the accountant to properly access those time-saving features that AI will generate from data in to data out. And I think that
hence why Sage for accountants is kind of that wrapper that goes around all of it.
And that's where they're really ahead of their game, and they're really thinking about the accountant in their development plans.
And I know obviously you've got Sage Intacct now, which is a much larger product. I'm actually not entirely sure. Is it called Sage Accounting? The base it is Sage Accounting. I know you've gone through a number of iterations of names, and I actually got lost on where it was at the moment. So Sage Accounting. Yeah. Do you feel that there is and this may be something that you have discussed or haven't discussed, but there's a gap between Sage Accounting and Sage Intacct? Because I see Sage Intacct as being quite a large product.
Yeah.
Sage Accounting being obviously micro business.
It's a misconception actually, and I think there's some work going on, particularly with our so there's definitely a need for this. A lot of businesses are outgrowing, the cloud-based solutions and need to go to these the small solutions need to go to the medium solutions. And there's a lot of work with our field sales guys that are going out into their practices that have got this requirement to understand that actually Intacct is a natural step up from the small cloud bookkeeping solutions as the businesses get bigger. It is perceived to be a huge tool for huge businesses, but it's not. Absolutely has a place for those hyper-growing, fast-growing businesses looking to
definitely
get out.
Mid-tier businesses. I think the price leap is probably where they're slightly nervous, like from Sage Accounting to Sage Intacct. It's not a small jump, as you probably expect from a powerful tool.
But then equally, the features are substantial and they underpin and
Of course.
support these businesses. And it's right for those medium businesses within the small medium business sector. That's where it's built for. So they've got a lot of requirements. They've got a lot of needs. They're complex.
Of course, and they need the high
is in those products.
And I always think that, if you're on like a Sage 200, you're making a big step up by going to a Sage Intacct, because like it's not feature parity, it's much more advanced. And so that's why I was wondering if there was a gap. And it'd be good to kind of see over time.
Product Intacct.
Yeah, it'd be good to see over time how you kind of, even if it's just a marketing bit, fill that gap between those two, or the perceived gap between those two products. So I guess as well as the key things, you've got revenue growth, you've got the large migration of cost to annual recurring revenue. Are you seeing, and I'm not sure if this is something that you reported or haven't reported, but are you seeing a large number of clients moving from the likes of your Sage 50, Sage 200 across to those cloud products yet? Or are they more moving to a monthly recurring revenue model, but on your legacy systems?
It depends on the business. We're seeing a lot of move over to cloud. Of course we are. And, there's an active, we encourage where we can, we support where we can. And there is definitely a move that we're seeing come over to the cloud solutions, the desktop base, for the obvious reasons. And so we'll continue to see that transition, I think, over the coming years, and particularly with, the end-to-end advancements that we're making, the AI piece. Of course, the cloud solutions become even more appetizing. So, yeah, I mean, they're migrating. I don't really know how to answer that.
Cool.
Yes.
I can't, we can't underestimate. It's a really, really good product. It is. And
it's still the market leader.
There's a lot of people that are still deeply in love with Sage 50, and it really delivers for them. And so, it's like trying to move them off, a really solid bit of kit. It's part of their family and their business, when it works for them, it works for them. But we are having a direct migration across to cloud, because of course it's where we're heading as a business, and want to ensure our customers have access to the latest technology that we're bringing out in our cloud bookkeeping solutions. And
I think the only thing that ever stops that is feature parity, right? And so the Sage Accounting has now evolved, matured into, I guess, feature parity to a large extent with Sage 50. But like most of the small business cloud native finance solutions, inventory is a weak spot, where Sage 50 was pretty good with inventory. Now, because you've gone through that acquisition journey, and I think it's paused recently, but you've done reporting, you've done data collection. Do you feel that there may be at some point, if there's an opportunity, an inventory acquisition?
I mean, you'd have to talk to our M&A team. I think the point is the Sage is really smart at looking to see where we can support our accountants further. And actually, we are always open to acquisitions to ensure that we plug any of those gaps. And so the more that people put their hands up in the air for it, the more that we recognize that it would streamline their ways of working, the more that that'll become a prioritized. But we've got to find the right partner. There's lots of tech companies out there, but we've got to make sure that any tech company that we bring in to fill that gap is the right one. And so I have no doubt that there are scouts out there, but they've just not necessarily found the right one yet.
Yeah, well, there's been a bit of a void in the space, because there were a lot of inventory solutions, and then they all started to get acquired. So like Intuit bought Trade Gecko and kind of just ripped that out and stuck it in their system. Xero bought Locate, and then the Access Group bought Unleashed. And so I guess the choice that's out there is less now. So trying to find the right partner is probably a bit more
That's assuming
challenging.
that no more new tech comes on the market there, Ryan.
Of course, there's always new tech. Like we've got turbo inventory, which is
somebody somewhere sitting in a cupboard coding as we speak. So I think it's all right. We can
watching this webinar going, I'm going to build this for Sage.
But that's the thing with this industry, right? Like it you see things get acquired, and then the next generation of that software comes in and that gets acquired. Like Like you look back to the Futurely days when we launched, and well Helen launched, I say we, you know, then when that generation of apps went, then you got like the SIFs that came in, and they then got acquired. So it's like there's always that kind of next generation of the apps.
I think what's interesting is this next phase, and I keep talking about it, but it's like we go through tech, and tech, particularly in accounting, goes through these phases of evolution. And it's like the cloud, the bookkeeping, the digitalization of the bookkeeping piece. That's kind of, it's not done. Of course, it's not. Underpins core parts of our business to ensure we digitalize and enable SMEs to have access to all that digitalization. But it's at where it's going to be. But what's going to happen with this next era, this AI piece, is that will drive innovation. It will bring to market lots of new ideas that we haven't even thought about, and new technology. So it's really exciting, I think, when you hit these new curves in tech, where suddenly you'll see a flurry of opportunities and in interesting solutions come to the market, driven by this next wave of technology development.
Definitely. I think the combination of cloud-based finance solutions, e-invoicing, and AI is going to completely redefine how bookkeeping is done.
Yeah.
It will be massively systemized with that kind of high-level review and sense checking. And that means a completely restructure of bookkeeping businesses and accountancy businesses to make sure they're adapting to that. And we will need support, and we will need tools to be able to assist us doing this. I know that John is always harping on the fact that accountants need to be building this stuff. I just don't believe we've got the time or the skills to do that in bulk, and we rely on vendors such as yourselves to help us in that journey.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I think, you know, you stay in your lane, isn't it? And lean on the expertise and the experience, I think, of tech companies that have done it. I think there's a huge piece of when you have, it's like an iPhone 1 versus an iPhone, God knows what number we're on at the moment. You know, they evolve and they learn. And I think therefore that experience, particularly if I come back to Sage, is 40 years of building tech. Imagine the amount of knowledge that sits in that enables the next solution to be the right solution. Whereas actually just to have a standing start, that's very scary in a very fast-paced technology market.
And I think, I'm sorry, just the last bit on that, and I think trust and that authentic piece is going to be key to this moving forward, right? Like trust is going to be at the heart of all of this, and it's going to get more as AI becomes more and more prevalent across the whole industry. That kind of trust and authenticity piece, I think, is going to be as much of a driver as anything else on how people make their software decisions. So that's the bit for me that I really want people to take away is, you know, really understand the brand and the technology you're dealing with and their history and what they bring to it, and make sure you have that trust in that, because that's so important to you then build your foundations of this whole new tech stack that you're working on.
Yeah, and it's not going to go anywhere, right? It's got they're not doing things on stairwells potentially. They've got the financial nous to stay the long game. Not that Futurely didn't. So there's a couple of things that I just want to finish up on. Firstly, you know, whenever there's good results, was there anything out the results that as a business you thought we'd like to do a little bit better, or we need to focus on this going forward? Is that anything you've kind of looked at?
I think, I mean, we're always going to move the goalposts. We want to, you know, we want to win this next era accounting. We want to be the leaders. We came out first. We want to continue and hold on to that pole position. So, of course, you know, we want to push harder, run faster, do more, deliver at a quicker pace. But actually, it's also really reassuring, the results, because as with any tech launch, when it comes out, you have an element of, you know, are we doing it right? Are people going to buy? You never know. Are they going to stick? Are they going to churn? Are they going to go and pick another bit of software? So actually, there was a reassurance in the numbers, but also, holy hell, we can do this. We are going to hold our pole position. So now we start sprinting. So I think that's probably the feedback from the business is we've got our opportunity and we're going to grab it, and we're going to grab it with both hands.
I think that leads then into my final question, which is, what have those figures changed, I guess, what your objectives are for the next year? And is there anything you can kind of, I guess, top level goals, objectives, kind of tell us and what your focus is and how that may impact customers?
I don't think it's going to surprise you. AI is going to maintain as our core focus. We're also underneath that is, of course, focusing on still enabling our accountants to go through these next phases of MTD. We can't ignore that. We can't think big, shiny new toy and then leave our accountants at probably one of the most challenging periods that they're going to go through, trying to digitalize probably one of their most challenging customer base as we go through the next 2-3 years. So really continue with that business as usual to support our accountants to get through MTD with our solutions, with education that's wrapped around it. And then on top of that, AI is our core focus. We will ensure that we land this really authentic intelligence out into our small business customers and our accountants to truly revolutionize their workflow.
Cool. And I assume as agentic AI now starts to take hold, you're going to have to be building that into your product as well. So there's a lot of change, a lot of adaptation that needs to go on any tech business. Sage being one of those.
It is exciting.
It is exciting.
The only thing that doesn't change is there's always going to be change, right? Like that's so true.
And now we can just give all of those tasks to Phil. So thank you, thank you so much, Ellen and Phil, for joining the discussion today. If anyone does want to learn a little bit more about what Sage have been doing, what they're going to be doing in the future, please do reach out. I'm sure we'll be happy to answer your questions. And please do tune in every Thursday. Please do tune in every Thursday to catch the live show where we'll be discussing a leading news topic in the accounting world in the UK.